Let us celebrate Tarik Skubal and also discuss a small signing the Tigers made, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, November 21st, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome in, welcome all. Happy Thursday, everybody. So we got a few things on the docket today. We're going to start off the show by celebrating Tarik Skubal taking home the American League Cy Young Award. We're going to talk about his season, how awesome it was, talk about where it stands in terms of like all-time Detroit Tigers single season pitching years. We're going to talk just, fun stuff like that. It's also his birthday. We'll wish him well, and then just talk about how much he means to the Detroit Tigers organization and has meant, honestly, for even dating back to when he was in the minor leagues. We're going to discuss the Tigers' first signing of the year. It is a minor league signing. I'm not trying to sell you anything that it isn't, but we are going to discuss him as, Jones, could end up playing a few games in Major League Baseball at some point this season. We'll discuss all of that. We're going to talk about the Tigers officially getting a deal done with FanDuel Sports Network. We talked about that a little bit last week, so not too much else to add. And then about the Home Plate Club, which has been weirdly controversial and got some backlash by the fan base. We'll discuss that at the end of the show. But to start off, let us celebrate the fantastic year that was 2024 at Tarik Skubal. 192 innings pitched, 228 strikeouts, a 2.39 ERA, a 0.922 WHIP. That's remarkable. Anytime you're around 200 innings and your WHIP is around 0.9, you are dialed the heck in. You are absolutely locked in. He went 18-4. And even like another kind of fun, a little bit more analytical stat, he led the American League in FIP, fielding independent pitching. So that means that his ERA was 2.39. Even the stat that is supposed to be kind of like the Debbie Downer to super low ERAs, or like the beam of hope to super high ERAs, right? The stat that people look at and go, oh, well, if you take out luck and you take out, the bloopers and some of the stuff that pitchers can't always control, bad defense, whatever. Well, he was still the best pitcher in the American League. It was so obvious that he was going to win this award. We've been talking about it for a while, but I do, now that it is officially his, I do want to actually give him his flowers and not just be like, okay, like we all knew this was coming, whatever, and move on. Like that's what we've been doing on this show for the last, 6 months. I guess that's maybe a little dramatic. Probably the last 3 or 4, though. It's been like, all right, like Skubal's going to win American League Cy Young, and that's really all there is to it. Let's just move on and talk about more pressing matters. Well, I want to actually just talk about how great he was. The American League pitching triple crown goes to Tarik Skubal. Funny enough, Chris Sale also won the Triple Crown in the National League this year, which is funny because the last time that a full season happened, Shane Bieber did win, to give him his credit, the American League pitching Triple Crown in 2020, but that was 60 games. Okay, it's very hard for me to legitimately count 2020 in like record books, but I don't want to like slander Shane Bieber either. He's a great pitcher and has been for quite some time. No disrespect to him, just disrespect to the very lousy and lame attempt of a season that Major League Baseball put together in 2020. That will always be absolutely ridiculous to me how they handled that situation. Anyway, the last time that a pitcher won the Triple Crown, it happened in both leagues in the same year. So history repeats itself kind of thing. I thought that was cool. And it involved a Detroit Tiger. Justin Verlander and Clayton Kershaw both won their respective leagues Triple Crown for pitching in 2011. And as a whole, this has only happened 7 times since 2000. I guess if you include Chris Sale, it's 8 times, but like, is Chris Sale the 7th or the 8th? Is Skubal the 7th or the 8th? Whatever. But it is very few and far between. We're now 24, 25 seasons into the new millennium here, and the new millennium, quarter of a century in, and it has happened fewer than 10 times. Tarik Skubal being one of those instances. And the fact that there's 2 Tigers on that list, pretty darn cool, right? We're going to talk about Justin Verlander here in a second. So after this, seeing the Triple Crown thing and doing a little bit of research on how often that's happened over the last 25 years, really just in baseball history, how often it's happened, which is still not very many. But a little bit more common than the offensive Triple Crown, certainly in the last 50 years. I wanted to see where his season stood against other Detroit Tigers pitchers, right? In the history of our beautiful organization, where does this season rank? And it is, to no surprise to anybody, pretty darn high up there. The difficult part with WAR, there's a lot of difficult parts with the stat of WAR, but one of them is that in theory, if you play more games or pitch more innings, you are going to inherently, assuming you're not terrible, rack up more wins above replacement just because you're playing in more games, right? So Tarik Skubal threw 190 innings. I mean, his WAR technically ranks, I think it's like 20 or 21st all time in Tigers history in a single season. But like, I mean, Hal Newhouser has the most WAR ever accumulated in one single season by a Detroit Tigers pitcher ever. He almost threw 300 innings, right? Like it's a lot, and there's a lot more in there, right? Of guys that, I mean, you get even older than Hal Newhouser, you start talking about guys that are throwing 350, pushing 400 innings. It's like, okay, well, yeah, if you have a sub-4 ERA and you throw 390 innings, you're probably going to have a lot of WAR accumulated. So it's kind of hard to do it with just using the stat of WAR. But the fact that he's, borderline top 20, even with that kind of caveat thrown on there, is unbelievably impressive. I think. And then you start looking at ERA, similar conversation, kind of hard to compare eras. But I think one of the stats that really jumped out at me was Tarik Skubal in 2024 has the 3rd highest strikeout rate in a single season by a Detroit Tigers qualified pitcher ever. Ever. 3rd highest K rate. Max Scherzer just above him in 2013, and he went 21-3 that year, won Cy Young. That was his crazy kind of coming onto the scene party, if you will, back then. So just a fantastic year, and as I said at the beginning of the show, also his birthday. Tarik Skubal turns 28 years old the day he wins the American League Cy Young Award. Pretty darn cool. We're going to talk about kind of his impact within the Tigers organization, and then we will move on to some other smaller stuff as well. We'll do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win at FanDuel. Take on the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place a live bet on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place all of your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, shout out to the everydayers that do tune in and make us their first listen every single day. Tomorrow, we will, of course, be back as we are here, your team, every day. Tomorrow, we're going to discuss the non-tender deadline that is on Friday afternoon. We will discuss the Tigers' potential options for non-tendering. We'll talk a little bit about arbitration, what some of these guys are expected to make, and all of that good stuff to send you off into your weekend. Today, however, we are celebrating the season of Tarik Skubal. My biggest thing when talking about all this is genuinely, it's so simple and not, not a deep thought at all. It's just like, I hope he pitches in Detroit for such a long time. Like that's really the first and last thing that I think about when I think of this season, when I think of his career, is just, I hope this dude is here for a while, man. Like this is somebody that you build around, and teams that are trying to compete and get over the hump and get out of a rebuild, the hardest pieces to find are the elite superstars. And that is why when you see a team that's been bad for a while have and develop or come across an elite superstar type of talent, they immediately become a lot more active in free agency and start, trying to get their development a lot better. Like they look at the Royals. Bobby Witt Jr. just put up like a dang near 10-win season at shortstop. And last winter, they just had their most active free agency we've seen since they were like World Series contenders. So it's so hard to find them, but they are vital to long-term success. You need those high-end, top-end, elite, some of the best players in baseball on your team to be a consistent winner. You're bound to hit on good, productive players like here and there, right? 1.5 to 3 win players to kind of build around. I mean, unless you're kind of like the Rockies over the last few years. No disrespect to I love the Rockies, okay? And they do have some guys that had some decent seasons, okay? But like the elite core is the hardest part. And this is a guy that, when this team was losing 114 games and was losing 90 whatever it was in 2022, I guess. No. Right? Like when this team was terrible and at the peak of the rebuild, what got us through that? It was the thought of the prospects. And Tarik Skubal did not have the draft hype that, Mize, Torkelson, Green, like these other guys that were high-end first-round picks had. Matt Manning, Alex Faedo even. Like, he didn't have that level. He was a later-round pick. What was it, 7th round, 9th round, 7th round? And by the time he got to Double-A, this dude was making local headlines ahead of or instead of, I should say, the major league team. The major league team was terrible. I love John Hicks for the rest of my life. That dude should never hit cleanup for a Major League Baseball team. One of my favorite players from that era. Inexcusable that he was one of the team's best hitters. And to just see the full circle-ness, right? That's the part I'm really trying to focus in on. The full circle of, and I guess like true full circle is like if Tarik Skubal is the ace on a team that wins the World Series, but like this is such a big moment to go from the major league team's terrible, we have nothing, everyone's miserable, and hope is lost, but there's this lefty in Double-A that has like a 16 K per nine, which none of us have ever seen before. And we were like, oh my goodness, is he better than all the other pitching prospects? This is insane. At one point, I think it went down a little bit, but at one point, his K per nine, I remember the headline when his K per nine hit like 17 and a half. And it was like, what is this? What is happening? And to go from that to Cy Young in 5 years is and him pitching for the Detroit Tigers in the playoffs is just so awesome. And I'll end it with this. We went through the rebuild, we went through all that, tough times and whatnot, and on the other side, the Detroit Tigers have one of, if not the best starting pitcher in baseball. And that is just absolutely awesome. The Detroit Tigers also made their first signing of the year. It's a minor league signing, okay? Not trying to, again, like I said at the beginning, not trying to sell you anything here, but they did sign Jahmai Jones to a minor league contract with an invite to Major League Spring Training. He's a former second-round pick from many years ago. I think we're approaching 10 years since his draft year. So he is 27 years old. He was picked by the Angels in the second round back in the day. Was at one point thought of being a pretty highly regarded prospect, just never really panned out. His major league career, he has a 198 batting average and a 535 OPS. Obviously, that's not great. In AAA last year for the New York Yankees, which is obviously the organization he was a part of, he hit over 300 with an OPS of almost 900. So in the minors, very much a very good AAA hitter. In the majors for the Yankees last year, I already read to you his career stat line, right? In the major leagues for the Yankees, he hit 238 with a 685 OPS. And that was in 33 games. So small sample, but significantly better than his career numbers up to this point. Look, this is a very small thing. I talk about every single move the Tigers make ever on here. We are a daily show. I'm going to talk about things that happen every day. And like this, these small moves that a lot of people just gloss over, like they matter. They matter. And they matter to me, at least. And if you're listening to this and you're like, who cares, dude? Like it's a minor league signing. He may not even play a major league game for the Tigers this year. You are absolutely correct. And that is totally fine. I am not going to tell anybody how to be a fan, but when I follow the team and when I do this, I want to know every single thing that happens in the Detroit Tigers organization ever. I don't care if someone drops a pencil in the front office. I want to know about it. And so to me, like we look at the team last year and you have your Buddy Kennedys and your Bly Madrisses and you have, Ryan Valade. Like these guys were brought in on 1-year deals for minor league contracts, and people scoffed at those. And like Buddy Kennedy was good in his time with the major league team and provided some good at bats. Ryan Valade provided a decent amount of productive ABs. Bly Madris did so well he got re-signed by the Tigers earlier this offseason. and is now a legitimate first base depth option. So like these aren't, I don't view any move ever as like completely meaningless, but like I understand that if you're looking at this and you're like, I just want someone good to play third base, me too. I'm not, again, I'm not trying to sell you anything here. He's also versatile, and I think he fits the mold of what Scott Harris is trying to do in the organization. We'll talk about that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. We're talking about Jahmai Jones. Really good chase rates throughout his career, which fits the mold of what Scott Harris is trying to do. He also plays a lot of positions, which fits the mold of what Scott Harris and AJ Hinch are trying to do. He has played second, third, first, and both corner outfield positions. Maybe even if you go back far enough with the Angels, maybe even played some center field at one point, but I can't imagine that's going to be a thing. But both corners, second base, and both corners in the outfield as well. Something that I bring up all the time is like pay attention to these signings because when you look at what the front office is preaching and when they're consistently like until our ears are bleeding talking about the dominate the strike zone thing and I guess honestly that's more the media that repeats that phrase. I'm gonna lay off of saying that it's the front office that says that all the time, but when you look at what they preach, patience and versatility, all of the guys they signed, again, the guys they just named, Buddy Kennedy, versatility, has some speed, was a very patient hitter. Like a lot of the signings they bring in externally, even if they are guys that aren't going to play a single game for in the major leagues this year, or at least, if everything goes to plan, shouldn't. The depth pieces that the front office brings in still fit the mold. They're trying to make this a top to bottom system and truly an entire organization mindset, whether you're a 30-year-old on a minor league deal, because, a position can have 6 people get hurt on it. Like that has happened plenty. We could be down every single outfielder and all of our backup outfielders. And like Jones could have to start every day in right field. Like organizational depth matters very much. And so to get players that consistently fit the mold, I'm not saying it's like a great thing or a bad thing necessarily. I'm just saying it's very noticeable that is what they're trying to accomplish. And like I said, that comes with an invite to spring training as well for Jones. Some other news, just small news and notes around the organization. The Tigers did officially get to an agreement with the FanDuel Sports Network and with Diamond Sports, who owns FanDuel Sports Network. That's great. We talked about this, I believe, last week now. It was either this week, Monday, or it was toward the end of last week. I don't remember. But we did talk about Diamond Sports' deal with Amazon and how soon, hopefully before the Major League season starts, you'll be able to stream via Amazon. We broke down that whole thing in that episode. You can go find that if you missed it. But this is just officially they are sticking with FanDuel Sports Network. That's all this means. There's no like new news or new updates or anything like that. It's just like the first update was, okay, well, Diamond Sports has an agreement with Amazon, but there's still 8 teams that have yet to renew their contract. The Tigers renewed their contract. So they will be still a part of the formerly known as Bally Sports Network, now FanDuel Sports Network. And hopefully Amazon can help get things running a lot better than what we have become accustomed to over really ever since they took over for Fox Sports Detroit. Okay, we're going to end by talking about the Tigers home plate club and just the weird like controversy surrounding it. Like, so basically the Tigers this year introduced the home plate club, which is this, you pay a ton of money and you can be a part of the exclusive, get all the perks of being like a top tier like fan within the organization, and you get a bunch of cool stuff and whatnot. And that's great. Fine, whatever. Now they have construction going on behind home plate. They're knocking down the seats right behind home plate. And they are building brand new seats, and including under those seats, they have like a VIP, room for like the home plate club, like, air conditioning, there's food in there, there's seats with the game on TV if you want to chill in there for a while. Like it's a whole thing now. And look, I know that people want signings and players, and the Tigers can't announce literally anything at all without all of the replies on social media being from fans that are like, no one cares, this is tone deaf, whatever. You should sign someone. But golly, man, and like I said earlier, I'm not going to tell anybody how to be a fan. I'm certainly not going to go to bat for ownership. I have been one of the biggest critics of this ownership group in my time hosting this show, and well before I was the host of this show. But this is just like like it's a 25-year-old stadium, man. Like it's I want it to last. I want it upgraded. Like I want these things. The scoreboard last year, everybody ended up loving it, and it was like, oh shoot, like this is actually pretty cool. Well, yeah, okay, well maybe shouldn't have complained about it so much when it had like these are fine. Like I really do not care. I don't look at them upgrading the seats and go, wow, well, we're not going to sign anybody now. And I think the biggest reason, and this is the most important point I have, is just like, this is also much more so the Tigers catching up to the rest of baseball than it is with like almost all of these upgrades we've seen over the last couple of years. Like a lot of the high end, good, like top market teams have had these types of, like, oh, behind home plate is fancier seats and there's a VIP room underneath for like a decade plus. I've had the luxury. My father and I have a great tradition where we are trying to go to all 30 ballparks together, which I know many baseball fans share that sentiment. And we've been to 2/3 of them in my lifetime, and including some that, like we went to Old Yankee Stadium, like, I promise you, a ton of the Minnesota Twins, when they opened Target Field with that. It was 3 sections in front of us when my dad and I went to Target Field. Like, and that's the Twins, right? Like, and that's not supposed to be like disrespectful. I'm just saying, like, I'm not just talking like, oh, the Yankees and Red Sox and Dodgers have this and nobody else. Like, no, like our counterparts also like, this is not like, oh wow, we're using money for such a dumb thing. Whatever. Like, I don't know. I just look. Obviously, sign players. I am not defending ownership for the millionth time. Go sign players. That should be that should 100% be the team's top priority. I want to make that abundantly clear. Okay. I would, if it's a choice, I would 10 times out of 10 take a player over seats that can get hot and cold behind home plate. Okay. I will probably never sit in those. But my goodness, it's not a negative to just upgrade the stadium, man. Like that it's not like that's not like a bad thing that should be frowned upon to just make upgrades to your home ballpark that we all go to. It's okay. All right. Congratulations to Tarik Skubal yet again. We'll talk about non-tenders tomorrow. All right. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. See you Friday, baby. Go Tigers.